to Terminal Expo. I'm joined by Lorenzo, the Managing Director for Munich Airport International. Thank you so much, Lorenzo, for joining us
Thank you very much for having me, and it is indeed a pleasure to be here in Frankfurt at this very prominent conference.
Fantastic, yeah, I like your enthusiasm. So could you just please introduce yourself to our audience, please?
Well, as you said, I'm the Managing Director of Munich Airport International. Munich Airport International is a company which is active in the field of consulting, training, management, and concession contracts. We've been actually activating ourselves, so to say, across different regions and geographies. We have offices in Asia, we have offices in the US, we have offices in Europe, and we've become somehow like a reference in terms of management, consulting, and concession contracts globally.
Okay. And so how are things going for the airports under Munich Airport International? Are there any upcoming developments that you can tell us about?
Well, basically we have a number of assets on the management. I guess what is very prominent or relevant to say about those assets is that there is the need of improvement on a non-stop basis, I will say. So there is construction, or there is the planning of construction, the planning of renovation. You also need to upgrade the facilities, and so on and so forth. So there is a lot going on in terms of construction, in terms of developing new commercial concepts, and hopefully, which is the very intent of all this development, is making sure that the passengers are very happy with at least the experience and the services they're getting at the airports we are in possession of, or those airports we get to support through different contracts. As you know, we are somehow famous for being a five-star airport, or at least the mother company. Our mother company is a five-star airport, so to say. So we also try to implement that knowledge, or that way of delivering quality in the services, quality in all the offerings that the passenger get at Munich Airport. We're trying to learn from that and trying to copy somehow and try to bring that overseas, and we try to implement that across the different airports we're part of. Yes.
Right, yeah. Okay, fantastic. So a one-size-fits-all doesn't work for Munich Airport's consultancy approach. What have you found works best in developing airports?
Well, it is hard to say. There is a service, there is a product, and you can just go out and sell it. I guess what we get to commercialize and end up delivering is basically services that are very much customized. So for that, what is relevant is to basically understand the market where you are trying to implement your project in. But besides that, is having a team which is sufficiently equipped with cultural knowledge, technical knowledge, that can accommodate themselves to the environment, the region, the country, the project where they're going to be doing their work as well. So it's not that we have things which can fit all over. There is always a certain level of customization in what you do. And for that, what you need is not only, of course, having experience, but having good people. People who can accommodate and therefore understand and therefore accommodate what it means doing a project in A destination or B destination, and so on and so forth. But it's also important when you want to grow the business is that you somehow need to localize yourself. And that means not only being close, being able to or reachable to your clients, but having members in your team who have practiced with certain culture or certain type of clients, and so on and so forth. So it's really a mix of, when you get to offer something to the market, you have to have a mix of variables, I would say, that you need to work on, like having a staff which is diverse, which is multicultural, but also you need to understand your client. Because your client, whether your client is buying a master plan for you or is buying a commercial strategy, what you might have achieved or performed, or the projects, the references you might have in A or B destination may not necessarily work in the project. Yet it's of course a good reference, but you have to have the methodologies, the processes, and the people in place who can actually take what you're good at and implement it at any project.
It's interesting you apply a human approach to your
it's very important. There is no business without. Actually, what we have, our asset is the people. That's what it is.
Of course, that's nice.
The rest is just complements the offerings. Yes,
absolutely. So I'd like to speak to you about your April control and its implementation at Newark Library International Airport. So the new virtual ramp control was put in place as a means to improve efficiency for ATM and for better resource control. Have you seen this, and what has been the impact on the airport?
I guess what is happening is that there is a big trend of digitalization. I guess processes and all that are being digitalized. And by digitalized, I don't mean that there is an IT system that you can buy and eventually that is giving you a certain advantage of the cost or what have you. I guess what is happening is that there are systems, but there is people who can use those systems, and the systems can talk to each other. This is what it is. And of course, there is a big innovation in the area of airport control management. But what I will say is that the innovation is much more about reaching certain efficiencies in the processes, eventually needing less time, and therefore eventually reducing cost of that. But what is also relevant about apron control is that through the systems and the new technology that is available is that you can make much more stakeholders not only talk to each other, work with each other, and therefore reach out or eventually develop solutions or find solutions or find eventually certain response to a situation that may develop at operational level. The use of system is also helping you find, how do you say it, to prevent, to somehow to foresee what may happen. And if you have that capability, what you do is you prepare your team for that. You can have a different roster, you can eventually make certain skills available or not, and so on and so forth. So this is basically what is happening. There is a tremendous push towards digitalization. Apron control is just benefiting from it. And what is relevant is that some companies are developing systems, are developing solutions which we as airport operator, we can make use of, and then generate the benefits I was just telling you about, which is less time, eventually less OPEX, and so on and so forth. This is what is happening.
Fantastic.
And of course, there are good cases. There are cases in the States. There are cases also in Asia. So what is happening is basically those airports which, for certain reason, whether it's the amount of passengers they have, the volume of passengers they handle, or so on and so forth, or the number of stakeholders, meaning the amount of airlines they have, the number of ground handling companies, and so on and so forth, these airports are just trying to find ways of simplifying, not banalizing, but simplifying operations. And one way of that is basically looking into the digitalization of the apron control.
Fantastic.
That's what it is.
I appreciate that. So what would you say the benefits of apron control for ATM at airports are? And I think you've already mentioned that there, but one, how do some of these new technologies make control seamless? I think you sort of touched upon.
Well, I guess what is relevant is that this technology is making people talk, which sounds weird to say that, but the information which is provided or which is available in the system is therefore provided and made available to different stakeholders. So it's not only that you as an airport operator are in your corner trying to plan your operations and then telling people what to do, eventually your stakeholders. Here the information is shared, is available 24/7, and we all have the same type of information. So transparency is very important. Of course, with transparency comes the issue of understanding and the interpretation you give to certain data. But for that reason, you have to have competent people, people who are sufficiently equipped in the space of apron management, airport operations, and so on and so forth, so that they can also lead the set of actions which are needed for eventually certain type of operations on the apron. So what I was going to say is that the main benefit is that technology is available, but you can actually really capture that benefit if you have people who are sufficiently equipped with the knowledge of mixing what is a day-to-day at an airport with what the technology can give you as well. Sometimes what happens is that I guess there is no shortage of buying IT service providers or buying solutions from IT service providers. The shortage is much more in understanding what to do with the IT services or the IT solutions that you're buying. And this is where you have to be very strong at in not only knowing what to buy. Well, first of all, you need to understand your operations. It's very important that you understand your operations. You understand your shareholders. Well, not only your shareholders, but your stakeholders, the different requirements, challenges, strengths, or weaknesses of those. but that you understand what to buy, how to implement it, and for the implementation, what is relevant is also, again, I want to go back to HR, the type of people you have, how equipped they are, how motivated they are in just making sure that wherever digitalization you have in that very process, like airport management, is fully honored and realized.
I think the theme of this interview is people and humans, and
we always go back to that
aspect.
topic, and
it's refreshing.
I just see the conference, and of course there are plenty of technology providers and some other type of companies just being here presenting their services, but I guess the human resource part of it is somehow, it needs to receive much more attention as well, which is very relevant, because at some point, no matter how hard we push for digitalization, at the very end of the day, it's an individual trying to really think about the process, implement the process, and eventually bring the operations to a level which is sufficiently competent, of quality, and so on and so forth.
And we see the impact of human loss anyways, because so many airports are struggling with vacancies and job losses and everything. So we see that actually happening to a daily airport operation.
It is an issue. Of course, this issue was, I would say, triggered by COVID. And I guess most of the airports have not fully recovered. I mean, eventually, from a traffic standpoint, yes, traffic is back.
Traffic is
people are talking about profits, and people are talking about eventually some other things being good at the airports. But the HR part is something that is behind,
still lagging. Yeah, absolutely.
I guess airports, they have lost their attractiveness as employers, and that's something we will have to work on very hard going forward as well. I guess airports or aviation in general is not as attractive as it was a few years ago, and that's something that we need to really, and actually for us as well, I guess our workforce, our experts are not only from one country. We have people coming from, I will say in the company nowadays we have we're able to speak about 25 languages. We have people from all over, and that is needed. Also to respond to what I was saying at the very beginning. If you want to make sure, whether you are good at A or B, if you want to make sure you can implement or do a similar type of project in X or Y destination, you need to have not only the experience, the capabilities, the resources, but within the resources, you need to have people who are motivated, but also who can, from a cultural standpoint, bring the company forward by means of having a good implementation of the projects you are responsible for.
So good leadership, essentially.
And leadership, of course, is part of it, which is also something that it needs to be developed in the industry in general. So it's not only the technical part or the layer of technical expertise, but leadership as well is very important.
Absolutely. So what have been the transformation in consumer preferences and shopping habits post-COVID-19? So I've read that there have been certain identities like Gen Alpha and neurodivergent inclusive that have been identified as being like a new demographic that the airport should cater to post-pandemic. So could you speak more about this?
I guess it's hard to say what is going to happen. We're talking about all these generations, X, Y, Alpha, you name it. I guess I'm kind of lost which is what. But what is a fact is that people want to buy. They want to buy new things, things we are not necessarily selling at the airports these days. And by selling, I mean offerings which will eventually be products or services which we have not thought of. We should eventually do more research about it. And what is very relevant is that this has an implication on your CapEx. Because airports, as you know, are CapEx intensive. So there is a lot of investment that is required for developing a terminal, renovating a terminal, or just having shops available for passengers. So I guess all this change in what people want to buy, how to buy it, when to use it, and how to use it, that is going to have a big impact on how airports are designed. And that will eventually also have an implication on how much surface is available at the airport. Is it 10, 15, 20,000 square meters for A, duty-free, or B, F&B, and so on and so forth? So that will be something that will change going forward. I personally see that eventually there is a push for more services. People want to buy much more experiences at the airport.
Yeah.
But what does that mean?
Yeah.
Because you only have passengers coming to your airport for an hour, hour and a half, or 2 hours.
Yeah.
How many experiences can you get to sell in that time frame?
Yeah.
So would that mean that passenger will come to the airport 5-6 hours before or prior to departure time just because you are selling something which is an experience? Is that a theme park?
Yeah.
Is that a swimming pool?
Yeah.
Is that anything else? So I guess the whole commercial part is at least the experts and airports which are very much dependent on non-aeronautical revenues, which is a duty-free and so on and so forth. We have to really think hard about what is the change that is coming. And the change that is coming, I will say, is going to be significant from a revenue standpoint. Not necessarily bad, not necessarily too positive either, but I guess there is much more research needed into that. Whether this is a generation alpha or others, what is a fact is that things are changing. And we also, just to complement to it, I guess, which is rather eventually an opportunity, but rather a threat, is what are the big logistics companies? I don't want to mention names here because I guess it's not necessary for the sake of the interview, but there are companies who are very active and very aggressive, logistically speaking. They can deploy products in a very fast manner. They're also very good in e-commerce. So the participation of these companies in the marketplace may eventually mean a change in the way we airports get to commercialize services and products in our facilities as well.
Fantastic. All right, thank you. And so I'm sure you've really answered this question, but how do you cater your retail opportunities at your airports to these identities? But I would assume that's, as you said, more research is needed and it has to be more tailored so it's more accessible for...
Well, we will not stop doing what we do.
Okay.
As long as there is a person wanting to buy a perfume and the likes, of course. We are not just going to get rid of concepts, commercial concepts, which do work as we speak. So I guess that is still going to, that type of business will continue going forward. What we have to do is to eventually, on the side, as you said, research, or what we need is to really have the possibility of testing and understanding what is the change. So you see some airports which are basically thinking about and implementing new concepts. Some airports are moving into airport cities, thinking that the non-aeronautical revenue of the future will be much more about having events or hosting events at the airport, whatever that is. Is that music? Is that sport? Is that anything else? Some of the other airports are saying, no, it's not on the city side of the airport where the new non-aeronautical revenue is going to come from, but within the terminal by eventually changing the categories of what I offer. Is that more of something or less of something else? That is what is happening. I guess we are in a period of testing, proving concepts, and hopefully in the coming 1 or 2 years we will come up with some concepts which are much more strong, or eventually which are going to be more resilient to the change that is being imposed by the fact that we have new generations traveling these days. And there is something that you were mentioning is passengers which have special requirements or needs. I guess that's something that it's being it's taken into account when designing your terminal. So that is also something that is going to have an impact on how you end up laying out your terminal as well. So I guess the commercial chapter of airports, meaning how airports make money, not only on an aeronautical standpoint, meaning whether you charge an airline or not, but on the non-aeronautical side of it, duty-free, F&B, advertising, you name it, this is where a big change is going to happen going forward. And we talk about digitalization, fine, of course, that is pushing for it, pushing for the change, supporting the change, but I will say that the change is much more triggered by the individuals, that after COVID, as you mentioned, some generations, there are new generations in the block, so to say. But these generations would like to buy things, things which might not eventually be available these days. But secondly, that the way they buy it, and thirdly, how they use it, how do they get to consume that service or product is going to change as well.
Fantastic, And so as my final Vox Pop question to you, I want to ask, what is your business outlook for the future?
Well, I guess it's very positive. Business is back.
Yeah.
I guess business is back, but we have to be conscious of what might have happened in terms of sustainability, in terms of making operations or the business much more resilient, and so on and so forth. The business is back. I guess the companies are much more conscious on items which are very relevant, like sustainability, for instance. And I guess there will be a lot of change, not only on commercial, but also how do you execute your business in becoming, hopefully honoring all the sustainability agenda, which is relevant and important. And of course, we are all committed to it. So that's what it is. I mean, keep on pushing for having eventually a better business.
Yeah.
But there will be change in regulations. There will be change imposed by not only changes in passenger behavior or purchasing behavior, but also there is the whole sustainability agenda, which is being accommodated, is being honored, and that will bring change as per how the operations is managed and so on and so forth. So my outlook is, or my comment on the outlook is rather positive.
Yeah.
But there will be change, and I guess as industry leaders, we just need to be conscious about what is the meaning of that change and how is that translated into the way you operate your business and the different requirements you need for operating your business as well.
That's some good nuggets of wisdom. Thank you so much, Lorenzo.
Thank you very much.